Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Wilke,
And I'm Janie Gianotsos.
and you're listening to the Uptake, where we share insights about public relations, the media, getting your voice heard, and making the most of your communications.
Every time people think about public relations, they think about press releases. And the press release is a staple in PR strategy, but it's misunderstood, and that's why we created this episode. Why should you have a press release? Where should you share it? What kind of results do you expect?
For good reasons and bad, this is one of my favorite subjects in our industry. Like Janie said, press releases is one of those things everyone thinks they know something about, but it really is just a tactic in our arsenal with regards to PR strategy. Press releases are a strong part of what we do, but it's vital to remember it's only one facet of what we do, and how you use them really depends on what you're going to get out of it. We had a potential client reach out to us a couple of years back, and they said, Paul, I don't know what we're doing wrong. We put out one press release a month and we're not getting any coverage. We're not getting any pickup. No one's running our press release. So I asked them, I said, well, who are you pitching it to? Who are you talking to? Who are you emailing it to? And they said, no one. I said, well, that's your problem. Press release, once you put it on the wire, you have to do a lot more with it than just that.
A well-written release will cover the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why. And that's PR 101. What people sometimes forget to ask is who really cares about this information? We did our previous segment on 8 traits that make your news newsworthy. So your release needs to be about something newsworthy. So check out those 8 traits if you haven't watched that video already, and make sure your announcement has at least one of them before you share it to the wire.
And speaking of the news wire, there's so many wire services and places where you can post your press release, and they do their job, which is to make your press release readily available to the public. What the wires seldom do is garner great coverage. Journalists don't have time to sift through the thousands of releases on the wire in addition to the releases mailed directly to them. I tell our clients there are only 3 people that read your press release: the person who wrote it, the person who signed off on it, and the person who proofreads it at the wire service. And that's really it.
Oh, but Paul, that's so depressing.
It really is. And, that said, we don't hate press releases. I mean, I come back from, back when I was a reporter, we used to receive them via mail, via fax. This was before internet. In my early PR days, we used to mail them out. We used to fax them. We used to photocopy them. They've been around forever. They're still going to be around. But, you have to understand what their purpose is.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't hate press releases. The rumors of their demise are greatly exaggerated by some of the people in the blogger space. Press releases aren't dead.
No, they're not. And one of the things, I actually like using press releases as a writing exercise. If we're working with a client, one of the first things I say, well, let's do a press release sort of highlighting where you are today. It's a great way to get crystallization on messaging, get people to think about, what do we want to say about a company? What do we want to say about a product? And the funny thing about press releases, everyone likes to edit them. Everyone likes to comment on them. So you're never short an audience for an internal review of a press release. Janie, why do we post press releases?
Paul, I'm so glad you asked, because there are some really good reasons to post that standalone press release. So your sales and marketing team can use a release as a resource to share news with clients and prospects, and releases live online forever. So your team can link back to it. Links you put in the release direct readers to where you want them to go, what you want them to read. And you might want to make your competitors or vendors aware, or maybe a little jealous of what you're doing, since releases do show up in searches and they're monitoring your company, and they might actually see your release. So sometimes posting a release may also be obligatory or part of the company culture, like announcing quarterly earnings, senior hires, or board appointments. And the release can become content for your blog and social media. And it's easy for others in your company to share it on social media too. You control the information on the release, and it says exactly what you want the world to know. So as long as you're not expecting media coverage, those are all great reasons to use that press release. But what if you really do want media coverage? coverage. So Paul, how does a release play into the bigger goal of getting a news story out there?
There's nothing that tightens my sphincter more than when a client says to me, hey, we need to do a press release on this. And they don't think about the strategy. And they just think about doing the press release just to do a press release. And this is where it gets complicated and where a PR professional can help. If you want your news covered, it's going to take a lot more than just issuing a press release. PR is a long game built on trusts and relationships, something your PR team or your PR associates internally have been working on and really built up a holistic strategy long before the press release hits the wire. One of the things we do at Upright, we work to find the story. And one of those 8 traits we talked about in our previous episode. And then we carefully select the journalists we think might find the story compelling for their audience. And this does take time. It takes time reaching out multiple times, refining the message, refining the pitch, adding more data, adding more information. The press release is always there as a resource or an anchor, even if we change the narrative around the story for different journalists and different story ideas. One of the things we do with press releases, we send the reporter a press release, but we often give them a nugget of information that isn't in the press release so that they feel like they have something special. And then, building into that press release a link that offers insight and shares key details with the journalist really makes a difference. Releases save reporters time. When I was a reporter, there were times I needed a story fast, and I would literally just sort of just write from the press release. And that's still done today. With a well-written press release, they don't have to come back to us and ask questions for the basic information, or we don't have to chase the client for that information. They've got the information they need to pull a story together.
Absolutely. They want something that's unique, even though the basics, the who, what, when, where, why of that press release is going to be the same across the board. They don't want to write the same story in their media outlet that another reporter's writing. So it's really important to have that unique nugget and to make sure that you're giving them something newsworthy. So anything else you want to add about your loves and hates of the press releases, Paul?
I think there are some finer points that we can go into on another topic another day, but keep it short, keep it simple, keep it to one topic. One of the things we see a lot of clients do is they want to quote like 3 or 4 different people, and you want to make sure people are represented in a press release, but keep it to 1 or 2 tight quotes, and that usually does the trick. And then proofread it before you send it on the wire. Fortunately, wire services have proofreading services, and they'll catch some mistakes that might fall through the cracks, but always have an extra fresh set of eyes read it.
Yeah, that's really true. I think you have to be careful with proofreading services, because a word like public, if you take one letter out of it, is still another word that's not going to show up
all made that mistake in somewhere.
I have as well. So, it's important not only for you to read it, but this is why PR professionals are great to have on your team too, because we're going to take the responsibility to look through that press release and make sure there aren't any typos and that there aren't any words that are the wrong word that are spelled right in your release. So it helps to have several sets of eyes on it before you hit the wire and hit the send button and send it out to the world. So let's wrap up here. To know the purpose of your press release is the most important thing. So know why you're writing it before you write it. As Paul said, write it well, one topic, keep it succinct. Think about how many quotes you really need in the release. And remember, it's part of a much bigger long-term strategy if you're looking for media coverage.
That is so true. And if you want to brainstorm PR strategy for your organization, including how press releases can work for your company, reach out to us at uptake@uprightcomms.com.
And be sure to check out all of our other Upright uptakes for more PR tips. And if you have a topic that you'd like us to cover, again, you can reach out to us at uptake@uprightcomms.com. And we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks, everyone.